morning, good morning, good morning. It is 5:30 in the morning on a Thursday morning. Today we're going to be drawing this little goat figurine here. This is a mountain goat, which is native to the Pacific Northwest and the Rocky Mountains. And we're going to talk about it a little bit today while we draw it. Just need to spritz these watercolors real quick. I want to make sure they're nice and juicy and moist. I like them juicy, I like them moist. So we can just tap into them later on when we're ready and we don't have to scrub them. So, mountain goats are native to, I didn't realize that these mountain goats were just native to the Pacific Northwest, coastal regions, and the Rockies. The majority of them are in British Columbia. I did not realize that. I, in my head, had these all across the Americas, all the way down into Chile. Because, I mean, anytime you see a scene with mountains in a movie, there's always a goat on the hillside going bleh. You know, there's always the danger of the goats there. Every time you watch them, every time you see them climbing a mountain, they'll show them struggling to get up there, and then look over, and then there's a goat that's been there the whole time that didn't struggle at all, just laughing at them, kind of not even caring that they struggled so hard to get up there. And that's a trope. That's in all the cartoons, that's in all the movies. So I was under the impression, because that's all I knew about mountain goats, I was under the impression that that's how they do. That's how mountain goats do. But it is not the case. Mountain goats are not all over the world. Not this type of mountain goat anyway. There are other types of goats, but mountain goats, specific mountain goats, are native to North America, Pacific Northwest, Rocky Mountains. The blocking was just a big blob. You just make a big blob there so that you can, there we go. It's just a, there we go. It's just a big blob. Make sure everything fits on the page. Now I'm adding in some anchor details and getting the shapes down. So about 30 million years ago, the animals that would become goats split off from the Bovidae family, which are the cows, other ungulates. And then these animals split off. This is more like an antelope. This isn't considered a goat. It's not in the capra. It's not in the capra genus. It's in its own genus, Oreamnos. I have no idea. I should have looked up what Oreamnos means, but it is in its own genus. And these are more closely related to antelope than to what we would consider goats. They're still in the Caprinae family, which is what all goats are members of. But so are antelopes and elk are in the Caprinae family. They're the ones that split off from the Bovidae about 30 million years ago. And then these specific animals split off about 3 million years ago, or this group split off about 3 million years ago, and then this group came across the Bering Land Bridge 20,000 years ago, just like the bighorn sheep that we drew the other day. Just like the bighorn sheep that we drew the other day, these guys came across the land bridge, found some craggy mountains, and said, "Nope, I'm not going back." They just decided they liked it there and said, "Nope, this is where I live now. I'm gonna make this my permanent home." They have the same kind of split, unique hoof that the bighorn sheep have, in that they have a hard outer shell, a hard outer foot, and a softer inner foot that allows them to grip hillsides, the craggy spaces. But these are, of the two, these are the better climbers. These guys like to be up higher. So they don't really compete for the same resources in the same spaces. I've got a bunch of stray lines there I need to clean up. I can't see what I'm doing. I have way too many stray lines. So these two don't really overlap, other than they both like the high places. They will have to compete for water resources and stuff like that. These guys are browsers. They like the twigs and the saplings and stuff like that. Where the sheep are the grazers. They like the ground stuff, the grass and other things of that nature. So they don't really compete for food. They only really compete for water, where they have to compete at all. But they are found in the Appalachians in Virginia, because in the mid 20th century, and this killed me when I read this. I could feel my whole body just turn into dust when I read this. In the mid 20th century, they some people decided to bring some mountain goats over to the Virginia for hunting stock, and then they released them, and then they caused some severe problems. Like in Ozempic Park, they caused some severe problems, and they've had to be managed with special hunting permits ever since, because they don't belong there. They didn't evolve there. The plant life and the other animals are not evolved to compete with them there. And so it's a struggle in the Appalachia areas. Morning, Claudia. Afternoon, buen provecho. She's in the car listening, driving. There's a lag. I can always tell when there's a lag, because my mom says the same thing I say about 3 minutes after I say it. She's talking to me in my ear, keeping me apprised of the chat. I wonder why I drew that so small. I had that whole space, mostly because I need room for this shadow over here. If I had made it bigger, I would have to fight room for that shadow. But yeah, I wondered though why they weren't in South America. If they were willing to import them into Virginia, why wasn't anybody willing to import them into South America? For the same reasons, for hunting and stuff like that. And there's no real answer. The only answer is conjecture, in that there's no excitement. There's no market for goat hunting in South America, like there would have been in Virginia. And initially, in my research, it initially said that there were conservation issues, and they didn't want to deal with the conservation issues of introducing a non-native species. But there are hippos in South America, because somebody introduced a non-native species and then just left them. And so has nothing to do. You'll never convince me it has anything at all to do with them not wanting to introduce a non-native species. But to me, it would make more sense if there just was no monetary issue, no reason to bring a goat in. Nobody was excited about having goats. People were excited about having a hippo. Nobody was excited about having a goat. These guys not being true goats, they don't butt heads like goats do. They still have the little horns like goats do. They're still members of the Capranea family, but they are not Capra genus. So they don't butt heads, but they're very goat-like in other ways. Like even domestic goats, all members of the Capranea family like to climb. Even domestic goats, if you put anything out in a pen with a domestic goat, they will climb up on top of it. So even domestic goats like to climb. They all do that. So they all are descendant from the same overhead family. That was one of the things that split them off from the Bovidae to begin with. But these guys split off on their very own little group about 2 million years ago, and then 20,000 years ago isolated themselves from everybody else. Now let's get rid of all those stray pencil lines and see if that's clean enough to work with. That's pretty good. That'd be all right. Body's a bit stocky. Legs could be longer. Body should be more up here. That foot should be more there. We've got a little bit to work with shadow. This is what happens when you let your pencil marks get away from you. You end up with stray lines you have to fight with later. But let's see what we do with it. It'd be very nice if the next animal is a leopard. I would like for the next animal to be a leopard, but I don't think that's the case. It just depends on what we pull out of the randomogrifier. I don't have them in a pile over here that I can sort. I actually have them in canisters like this. Here. I actually have them in canisters like this. I can't see it until I open it. So I can't just walk over there and say, today we're going to do a leopard. Dig me out a leopard, little girl. But what does happen is sometimes we pull stuff out. We say, yeah, that's not for Tuesdays. But hopefully we'll get a leopard. We did a jaguar. We did a cougar. We did a mountain lion not too long ago. The subtle hint. Ring the notification bell. The subtle hint is to ring the notification bell. That way you'll get notified when new videos drop. And when I go live in the middle of the night sometimes, you'll get notifications that I have new videos out. So the subtle hint today was to ring the notification bell. What was I talking about? I have no idea. These things live about 12 years, between 9 and 12 years. They They have about one kid a year, so they're living long enough. These are more of those Pleistocene megafauna. Again, like the bighorn sheep. These are more of these Pleistocene megafauna that manage to survive because they're in an area nobody wants to be. They're up high. They're in the cold air. They're not friendly. They don't like people. They avoid people a lot. So they're not really in places where people go. So they've managed to survive a very long time while other megafauna were dying out. These guys did a really good job of staying alive. You know, they outlasted probably one of their biggest predators was the North American lion, and they outlasted them. They had issues today with mountain lions. They still have issues with wolves, but not dire wolves because dire wolves are gone. They have issues with mountain lions and wolves. Hawks, believe it or not, are an issue for mountain goats, which I thought was very interesting. How is a hawk going to be an issue for a mountain goat? But apparently, very young mountain goats are susceptible to being picked up by very big hawks. Had no idea that was a thing. All right. Do do do. Do do do. Ivy might not get any. Ivy might not get any hair drying today. Oh, she's going to get a little hair drying today. Just not very much. These things, fur is not exactly white on this model. It's very white in the wild, in real life. It's very white. But this fur has a hint of, just a hint of cream to it. Just especially in the shadows. So we're going to add that. We're going to add that to our coloration. And then I'm probably going to go around the outside with a different shade to emphasize the white that is there. And then let's get that horn. We need just a little bit of orange, a little bit of dark blue, a bit more dark blue, a little bit more orange. And that'll get us a nice mud color that should get us a nice brown. All right. Now before I can do the bioadjust. Yeah, and there are goats in the mountains there, Ojas, but they're not the same goats. They're not the North American mountain goat. They're ibex. They're actual goats. And maybe we'll pull one of those next time. But bye. Thanks for stopping by. Now, I do want to I'm going to take a little bit of this sepia burnt sienna, or raw sienna rather, or is it yellow ochre? I forget. I think it's yellow ochre. It might be yellow ochre, and I want it really watered down because I don't want the page turning brown or yellow, but I want everything that's not goat to not be white, so that the white of the goat really stands out. And that way, the coloration that's in the fur actually looks more like reflections of the ground around him. When you do this, you have to be sure you go over the shadows. But you don't want to reactivate the shadow. You do want the shadow to remain distinct. If you don't go over the shadows, my mom is in my ear asking me why you have to go over the shadows. If you don't go over the shadows will have the same coloration as what is on the fur and not what is on the ground, and the shadows won't look like they're laying on the ground. They'll look like they're part of the animal. And you are trying to separate the animal from the background. That was a very good question my mother asked in my ear that you guys couldn't hear. She asked, why do you have to separate why do you have to make sure you go over the shadows with the other coloration? And the answer is because if you don't, you won't separate the ground from the animal. Can't talk, Artie. So there's that. Now, if Ivy were here, this would be her favorite part because we're going to get a second hair drying. We may actually get a third. How are we doing on time? We have 7 minutes. We may actually get a third hair drying because I need this shadow right here to have form to it so that that looks round. And it doesn't have that, so I'm going to add that in real quick. Also, the shadow from that horn is not there. The things you notice when you start hair drying. Okay, let's try that again. Elizabeth tells me not to talk while I'm running my dryer. All right, I'm going to use this pen. All right, So they hang out in nanny groups where you have a nanny goat watching over the young ones, and there won't be any males except some juvenile males hanging around, because the males split off into billy groups. They're usually either solitary or uh, uh, there might be a small group of males running around together. But the nanny groups have all the young ones. And they only come together for mating. The males kind of patrol the area, keep out the interlopers, make sure the predators are stay away. The males fight off the the wolves and the jaguars, or the wolves and the mountain lions rather, not the jaguars. Jaguars don't come into the North Americas. Cougars, mountain lions, pumas. And then but otherwise they stay away except for mating season. And I was noticing how many animals follow exactly that same pattern. It's very interesting to me how, like, that's the same lifestyle that the mountain lions have, where the females will have a pod of cubs and some juveniles hanging around with her, and the males will be patrolling between the female groups. That's the same lifestyle the elephants have. That's the same. I thought it was interesting how many animals have exactly that same lifestyle. There are some management issues we touched on a minute ago. Uh, they don't really have loss of habitat due to families moving into to cities moving in, because they're in the areas where those things don't happen. They're cold and craggly, and people don't really build there. But what does happen is where the people build, the cougars and wolves have to move away, and they have to move into different areas and adapt. And so the cougars and wolves are in a higher abundance the uh, where the mountain goats are, that they're not used to seeing. And so that is an issue. And then there's hunting in order to keep the population under control. This is the 7th, of August. There's hunting to keep the population under control. But hunting in the Pacific Northwest is very strictly regulated because they want to make sure they maintain their population. They're trying to keep the population between 80,000 and 120,000 animals. That'll keep a good breeding stock and keep good genetic diversity, so that they stay strong. They're not really herds so much as just various pods around. Uh, but in order to keep good genetic diversity, they want to make sure there's a good supply of males. They want to make sure that they don't cull all the big beautiful ones, and only because natural predators would take the sickly ones. So they want to make sure that they're not taking all of the big healthy ones out of the gene pool. So they're very strictly regulated in the Pacific Northwest hunting. But in Virginia, in the Rocky Mountains, they're invasive. They are quite an issue over there, and because of that, hunting is still regulated, because you can't just have people running around shooting them all the time. But it's they grant a whole lot more permits in the Virginians, in the Appalachians, than they do in the Pacific Northwest. So there is my goat compared to the photograph. Let's see it. Let's see it from my perspective. I've got a camera in my Amazon cart that I can mount, that I think I'm going to be able to mount it behind me, and you guys will be able to see directly from my perspective. We'll see how that works out Saturday. So then we'll just be able to switch to that camera. So let's see here. We got to get it from almost the exact same perspective that I had. And I obviously moved around as I was doing it. So this is, you can always tell when I move around because there's things there that you shouldn't be able to see. From angles you shouldn't be able to see it. There it is from my perspective. So that's my goat, my mountain goat. That's what I did today. The little girl has already pulled a canister for tomorrow. 9 out of 9.5. 9.5. Claudia gave me a 9.5. The little girl has already pulled a canister for tomorrow. Let's see what she pulled for us tomorrow. It is a, what does it say it is? A female settler cooking. I'm not sure how we're going to title that interesting, but it is a female settler cooking. So that's pretty complex. That's what we're doing tomorrow, Friday, August 8th. So we'll talk a lot about recipes of the frontier. We'll talk about cooking styles, because they couldn't just go to Walmart and pick up more collard greens. They had to do something. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. If you're watching this on the 8th of August and it's before 5:30 in the morning, then you're watching the trailer, and this is what we're about to talk about and what we're about to draw. So stick around. We'll get right on it. But for the rest of us, it is time for me to go to work. I really appreciate you guys stopping by. This is my favorite time of day when I get to art with my besties. There will be a lesson plan about the mountain goats on my website. You go to my website, artisticbiker.com. The blog is there, the pictures are there, and then at the bottom there'll be a place for a lesson plan. If you're a teacher and you would like to talk about mountain goats in your classroom, I've got a 20 to 30 minute lesson plan that you can download for free. It's just something I want to give back. So I have to do all the prep work anyway. I might as well give it away. So there's that. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Be sure and tune in tomorrow, same Artistic Biker time, same Artistic Biker channel. And then we dance. We dance till somebody says they see me dancing. Because when somebody sees me dancing, then I know that the lag has caught up to the stream, and I know that we won't be cut off. Also, it gives a chance for the links to appear on the sides if you want to watch more videos.